Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the El Calvario podcast. Here one more week with Pastor Suarez. Pastor, how are you?
I'm always fantastic. Leaning forward all the way.
They're going to say lean, just like you're lean.
That's right.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, units are going good.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how's the book going? I know it's been a few weeks since we...
I'm making progress, but I think I told you, I really do just need to take time off, be by myself, lock myself in a room, turn off the phone. Yeah, because it's really hard when you keep getting distracted.
Yes. So hopefully, you think by the end of the year, you think it will be longer?
I hope so.
So hopefully we'll get some more updates here in the El Calvario podcast. Because if you all remember, it wasn't exclusive here first. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can get that exclusive when it is done again.
Yeah.
But thank you all that have been sticking around, watching, listening, sharing, and just subscribing to our channel. Mm-hmm. I know I always hear some people that say, oh, they listen to this when they're working or this and that. So at least some people listen.
All right.
It's not just us. But we are talking about, again, I mentioned this last week. We are talking about biblical figures. Mm-hmm. Last week we talked about Jacob, and in the coming weeks we'll be talking about more people. So if there's any suggestions that you all want to hear, I think the only place you can comment is on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we don't have comments on YouTube. So if you have any suggestions, if you'd like to hear about any specific biblical figure, let us know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to it, maybe not. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But again, last week we talked about Jacob. So if you want to hear that first part, we do have it again online. You can catch it on our channels, all that stuff. And I say first part because this week we're going to be talking a little bit more about Jacob.
Yeah. It was like I said last week, this story was very important to me. So there's a lot I can say about this man.
Yeah. So we'll see just how many parts we'll get to. Maybe this will be the last one. We'll see though. Mm-hmm. But I think that's all the
preliminary junk that we got to get out of the way.
All the stuff.
House cleaning.
I think that's everything. So let's just, I think we could just get right into the topic then. So last week, again, we talked about Jacob and we talked about his perseverance, mm-hmm. right? How mostly the end, I wouldn't say like the end, but like the end of some of his story, right? Do you want to do like a quick recap of that before we get to the newer stuff?
I mean, last week I talked about Jacob having issue with his brother, Jacob stealing his brother's blessing under the orders of his mom. He leaves, gets this new, better life, still has issue within himself from what he had done in his past, has to come back, has to face his brother, wrestles with God all night. And as a result of wrestling with God all night, he walks different, has a new name, and he gets the blessing or the acknowledgement of God there at the end, which now he has not just an exterior transformation, but an internal one as well.
Mm-hmm. So again, if you want to hear more about that, we do have that in our podcast from last week. So again, getting back into Jacob, what did you want to start with here today?
Well, I actually kind of wanted to talk about the beginning of some of the issues with him and his brother. Mm-hmm. And in particular, and this is me wanting to correct a wrong that frustrates me all the time. And when I say that, it's because even today I looked at a Bible and it has a subtitle over this part of the story. They always tell the story, or in general, people tell the story that it wasn't just that Jacob lied to the father and stole his brother's birthright, but he also tricked his brother earlier mm-hmm. and took his brother's birthright. Except that's not exactly what the Bible says. We don't find the tricking that Jacob's tricked him, that he's this conniving thing at the beginning. We don't find that. And that always drives me nuts every time I read it. So forgive me. This is partly just me wanting to correct things that I wanted to talk about that today.
And so, again, we are talking a little bit about Jacob and his brother, right? Going back to the beginning. Yeah. Do you want to mention a little bit, like, what do we know about his brother Esau?
Well, first of all, firstborn.
Yeah.
Firstborn gets what's called the birthright. The birthright is a larger portion of the inheritance. However, as with everything, and this is important even in the New Testament church, everything you are given, especially abundance, when you are given abundance, it is for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So the birthright was an automatic larger portion of the inheritance from the father's house, but it was given for a purpose. 1, you cared for your mother, and 2, any unwed sisters. So you do get your portion of the inheritance plus extra, but the extra is purposeful because you are now supposed to be the leader of the household, the new patriarch in place of the father who has died. Okay? And so this man was given this, or was going to receive, I should say, this blessing for the purpose of being a blessing. Okay? That is what's in discussion here. It wasn't just, oh, you're the firstborn. No, there's a purpose to what we're talking about with this man. So he is the firstborn son. We also know that Esau, he was a more manly type of man, a hunter and these things and all that. We also know, which I guess we'll talk a little bit more about, he was a very immoral man. He was a man who didn't follow what his father said. He didn't follow these things. He was a man that sought Canaanite women over, who he should have. We know all these things about him from the get-go. So again, some of the framing of this story, and I don't mean to make Jacob an altruistic hero from the beginning, because he was not. Yeah. Which we literally talked about that last week. He was not, but there's this, for some reason, the way he's framed and the stories told, even Sunday school age kids, and like I said, some of the tags in the Bible, it's like that Jacob did these wrong things and that made Esau turn bad. No, Esau was already doing wrong. Okay, and so in that, now when there's the story in Genesis 25, Genesis 25. Where Esau sells the birthright to Jacob, he wasn't tricked. You could say he was a little manipulated. Maybe that manipulated is even too strong of a word. He was sold, I don't know if people understand that term. Like when you go to a store and you want to buy something and you got a salesman trying to sell you more. Yeah, Jacob sold him a little bit, but we don't find that this man was tricked. And the Bible doesn't say that Esau was tricked. He sold this thing of his own volition.
Do you want to explain a little bit more about what exactly happened? Yeah.
So Bible says, Genesis 25. So Esau was out doing what Esau did. He's hunting, he's doing other stuff, and he comes back and he is exhausted. And you know what? I probably should have pulled up the verses. Going to Genesis 25, scrolling through. I happen to have the New Living Translation open. And Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. This is how Esau got the other name Edom, which means red. So he is hungry. I don't think he was on death's door. That's opinion, I guess, because Esau would claim in a minute that he is on death's door. But he's walking, talking, he's moving, okay? And I'm getting there. So Jacob's response to this is, all right, well, I'll give you the food I have if you will give me your birthright. This is you're telling me you're starving, and this is what I'm saying. Let's trade, okay? This is very, out in the open. And then, the verse after that, Esau's like, listen, I'm starving. Okay, paraphrasing, but I'm starving. So what good is the birthright to me? And that's a very key phrase. What good is this to me? What does this serve me? We're back to the same mindset. This was given for other people's help. But now he's saying, what good does this serve me? Especially right now, I'm starving. So he agrees to it. Okay. And I'm trying to open up the King James here, but that story ends. So you got Genesis 25, verse 30, and I got the New Living Translation open, and it says, about Esau. So he sells the birthright, and he says he showed contempt for his rights as a firstborn. Contempt is that translation. I know the King James, even though I can't open it right now, it does say that Esau despised his birthright. So you get the larger portion of the inheritance for the purpose of loving and caring for your mother, your unwed sisters. You got all that for this, and yet he despised it or had contempt for it. You know, Hebrews 12, okay? Again, I really wish that I could switch Bible translations. I don't know why it's not letting me, but nonetheless, Hebrews 12, 16. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, for who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. Fornicator and profane person as Esau, who sold his birthright. So we have this thing. This man didn't love what was given to him naturally. He didn't love the fact that he would be the one to be the patriarch, to take care of the family. He didn't love it. Again, he says, you know, what good is it to me? And so he's just ready to give up his blessings, his inheritance, because for the temporary right now. And yet Jacob wants it. You know, we know that would be actually in the same chapter. We do know that Isaac loved Esau, and we also know that Rebekah loved Jacob. Okay, so we got one closer to the mother, one closer to the father. The one closer to the father says, I don't care about the larger inheritance because why am I going to take care of her? And then you got the one closer to the mom who says, I can see where this is going with my brother. You know, and this is me, I am putting a little bit to the scripture, but usually a man who jumps from woman to woman and, you know, we know that he was given to the Canaanite women and all that stuff. Usually that kind of man does mistreat women all the time, not just in that area of their lives, usually. So, again, we're seeing more symptoms, more signs. Well, he doesn't care about women. He doesn't care about what needs to be cared for. Look at how he's treating these other women, let alone how's he going to treat my mom, unwed sisters, all that. So we got Jacob who loves his mom and sees where this thing is going. So, yeah, sell me your birthright because I'm going to take care of my mom. I'm going to take care of what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
That's really what's going on here in this story, in spite of however else it's presented. Yeah.
So what other areas in the term of, or in the story of Jacob did you want to discuss as well?
Well, I actually kind of want to keep going with the birthright a little bit because, you know, in the world, we seek blessing for ourselves, right? People seek position and honor and money and XYZ for themselves, for their ego, or which I'm not old enough, I guess, for that yet, but, you know, for their own legacy. But the Bible does teach us to seek things, you know. We seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness. These things shall be added unto you. The Bible's not against blessing. You know, the Bible does teach God multiplying, God blessing, all these things. But we go back to why was the birthright given? It wasn't just for the person, it was for others. And so we need to understand in our lives that the blessings that God gives us aren't just for us. We're not supposed to be the end goal. Everything is supposed to flow from us to other people. Okay, so I'm going somewhere with this. There is a reason that the Bible does teach, rough translation in English, but to have the desire to be a bishop or an overseer, or to be very simple, a pastor, an elder, a minister, is a good ambition. It doesn't mean that everybody should jump in there. It doesn't mean everybody's necessarily called to there, but it's a good ambition. Why? As long as you're doing it for other people, like, that's good. That's how it should be. And so we need to understand that the things God does in our lives, spiritually, monetarily, mentally, emotionally, every other which way, these are things that are supposed to pass on.
Yeah.
And so to want to have the ball, so to speak, to use a sports analogy, to ask for the ball so that the team can win is good.
Yeah.
To ask for the ball so that you can win, that's where we get in the Esau territory. All right? That's what are we doing here? So there needs to be a mindset shift. Why do I want these things? And I've told the story before. A man I know who, for whatever reason, he couldn't serve in ministry. Maybe he wasn't called. I don't know. Different circumstance, right? But he had a burden for souls. He had a burden, and he knew that I can't. For whatever reason, he couldn't, right? I'm talking as far as in the capacity as a minister, he could not. So he prays. God tells him, open said company. And you're going to work at this company, grow this company. And I'll never forget the day he told me with excitement, my whole goal is for my tithe, not my offering. But my tithe will be enough to pay the salary of a full-time minister at my church. I mean, like that's the shift that we need to have. I mean, I've talked about it before, you know, like we get this thing in our head that we're not good enough and whatever. You know, why don't I'm just saying, is it not noble to pray for a bigger house that has a living room that is capable of actually hosting a small group? You know, is that praying according to your own lust? Is that praying according to your own ego? No. You know, I want the birthright for the good of others. And it's just, it is a mindset shift that we do need to have. We're not against the blessing. We need those things, but we need to understand that the blessing is not just for us and our own ego. It is supposed to come to us and then flow out to others. And that's how the things of the kingdom work.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it for this story.
Yeah.
I'm again, if you can't tell, I'm kind of passionate about it because it does drive me nuts every time I read it. I'm like, that's not what it says. That's your own opinion.
Well, I guess if there's nothing else, then we can wrap this one up.
All right, let's do it.
Where are we at here? I'm just looking at the time. A little early, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I did want to just mention it's like a complete, like non sequitur, complete nothing to do with this, but it's really hot in here. Like we have like a space heater under us, and I think this is the first time where I feel that it's actually pretty warm.
Yeah.
Normally it takes a while for this thing to heat up, but it's like really warm.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a good thing because the day we're recording this, it's pretty cold outside.
-16 was it?
Yeah, something like that with the wind chills and stuff. But I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
But thank you again, Pastor, for joining us. Thank you for sharing more about what we can learn from the story of Jacob. For everyone that is watching and listening, hopefully you got something out of this too. And I just encourage you all again to continue to share, subscribe, follow, like. I don't know any other words that kind of go with that, but just do all that stuff and more. And we'll see if we continue with Jacob or if we go to a new biblical figure next week. But until then, have a good day.